You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
What's up, Commander fans? Welcome into Believe in Commanders. As always, I'm Brian Murphy, joined by my guy, Anthony Armstrong. AAA, how are you doing on this Tuesday? Recording the post-game pod a little bit later than usual. Have family and all that stuff, kids to get to, but how are you doing on this fine Tuesday?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Can't complain, Brian. Everything is good. I mean, given circumstances, but circumstances happen, right? So it's nothing
That's right.
nothing bad, nothing serious. Just a little, weather changes and it gets kids sniffly and sick and a little bit. So, got to keep them at home. Got to be smart. But everything's good over here. Everything is
That's
good.
right. Well, it gave us an extra day to kind of digest the loss in Dallas, and we'll dive into all that and some more Commanders news and notes and some fun stuff around the league. But first, we want to tell you about Bet Online, who helps to bring us the show every week.
Yes, indeed. You gotta love Bet Online, and see football is back, and Bet Online, it remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit.
100.
That's an upgrade. That's a full. That's
Yeah.
like basically what you put in there. You're getting that much more.
That's right.
Make sure to use our promo code. They shortened it for us. It's just Believe, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. I like that place. I have a tab pulled up right now for Bet Online. So hey, we may touch that stuff a little bit later on, but let's get into these news and notes. What's going on with the Commanders?
That's right. So we're heading towards about the middle of the week, usually when we hear kind of injury updates from the past week. So we thought we'd start there with a couple of notable things. Sounds like the Commanders are a little banged up after that one. It sounds like Jahan Dotson, who I think I saw towards the end of the game, had a pretty heavy wrap on his hamstring. Sounds like he could miss a game or two. Then we hear today Sam Cosmi has a hand injury. They're working out a couple of offensive linemen. So it sounds like he could be down two offensive starters to an already banged up offensive line group and a skill position group that you think is one of your strong suits could be banged up there. So Cosmi and Dotson potentially missing a couple of games. That's going to hurt a bit.
That is going to hurt, and I mean, anytime you have injuries, it doesn't add value to your team. But those two guys are people that you really don't want to have miss. I mean, say what you want about Cosme, he is still starting right tackle in this league, and he's going to give you your best bet up against whoever is going to be across. And he's had some hellified competition to go up against the past few weeks. But with the way this line's already been shifting
around
and reshaping, and just like my words, stumbling and fumbling, going through that, yet another person being out, that's not good. And then with Jahan, him being out, and I think it's a hamstring. They say 1 to 2 weeks. Those hamstrings, I tell you, if you're not treated properly, they can linger. They can hang around. So 1 to 2 weeks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it just goes into 3 in like a precautionary mode.
Right.
But now you kind of got to look and say, okay, who's going to come up? Are you going to bring somebody up? Well, you're not going to put them on a IR. So, hey, if it ends up being 3 weeks, caution is best with hamstrings because those things can definitely linger.
Well, you got Tennessee this coming week and then Chicago on the quick turnaround on Thursday. So, yeah, I doubt we'll see him those 2 games. And like you said, it could be it could be even 3 weeks, but maybe that little mini bye week from the Thursday game to the following week could help potentially get him back, but we'll see there. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Also along the offensive line, mentioned Sam Cosmi, Chase Roulier decided to have season-ending knee surgery. I think we kind of thought that was coming. It sounds like Tyler Larson's going to be activated, who filled in for Roulier last year. So that's a bit of positive news with a couple of guys going down the offensive line. 2 notes here. So Chase Roulier, it sounds like his season is over, but they also kind of shifted some money around for his contract. And I saw some speculation that could be if they need to bring in an offensive lineman or bring in a free agent, that they might have a little bit more wiggle room there. So a couple of news and notes there surrounding Chase Roulier.
Yeah, that's some smart play. Adjusting some of that salary cap. That stuff gets all out of my. That's way out of my
Yeah.
head. I told y'all when I got into before I got into real estate, I was considering being a teacher and a coach, Brian, and I and,
Okay.
and I chose math as the specialty to follow, and
Okay.
I got note cards to study. First one I opened was trigonometry. I was like, golly, I'd never taken trigonometry. I put those note cards right back where they came from, and I went down a different avenue. So, yeah, salary caps. That's not my side. I know a guy though. I do know a guy, but I
Okay.
mean that's smart to adjust that money a little bit to give yourself some wiggle room.
I can't. I mean, and I'm sure it's all digital now, but I can't imagine the paperwork that is kept on things like, oh, we moved this amount of money, but don't forget that we made this trade, so that money goes there. Yeah, I get like my hands get a little sweaty when I think about all the different moving parts in that kind of world that you don't even think about with football and sports in general.
Yeah, it's way more than a little, Texas Instrument calculation
That's
and your
right.
on your
Yeah.
graphing
Well,
calculator to make a parabola or something.
yeah, you mentioned math class. I knew I was done with math when I saw more letters than numbers. I was like, "Ah, yeah, I'm out. Not for me." It's becoming a second language for me here. So, yes, thankfully there are smarter guys than me figuring that out. So they move some money for Chase Roulier. If they do have to go sign a free agent, maybe a linebacker down the road. I don't know. And then a couple more injury notes. The guys that we've kind of been waiting on: Brian Robinson, Chase Young. It sounds like miraculously, and it literally is a miracle. Brian Robinson's going to be cleared, and it sounded like Ron Rivera was optimistic that he might play on Sunday. I mean, an incredible kind of roller coaster with that guy, and I just can't wait to see him out there. And I did not think it would be potentially this soon.
Yeah, it is great to see him back and be able to have him back in the fold. Just period off the fact of what he's been through,
Hmm.
but then being able to add him into the fold and get him back in the offense, that's going to be huge. And I mean, when you think about it, hey, with having Jahan out, maybe this changes kind of the way you look at the offense, how they're going to
Hmm.
really operate. Maybe it's a little bit more of a two receiver, set. Maybe two receivers, two tight ends, something like that.
Yeah.
Who knows what the mix is going to be, but it's going to make Scott Turner play with those chess pieces a little bit. He has a few more weapons. He has one other weapon that's more of a wrecking ball that I'm looking forward to see running
Yeah.
north and south and moving the pile instead of seeing Derrick Henry do that.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, same here. I didn't even think about that guy coming to town. And the one other one, Chase Young, it sounds like he still needs some more time. It'll be at least another week. I would be. I think it's going to be another couple weeks, but it sounds like he's trending in the right direction. He's always on the sideline, which I love to see. It looks like the team's biggest cheerleader out there, which they desperately need right now. So Chase Young seems to be right around the corner, which brings us into the disappointing loss in Dallas. So we kind of mentioned the running game there. I thought the running game actually was kind of positive from time to time, but the offense never really got into a rhythm. It's kind of been the same stuff that they have had issues with. They did score in the first half, which was nice. They actually got the lead there, 7-6, late in the first half before they actually gave up a touchdown right after that. Just some of the same issues that were kind of popping up. You guys have watched it. You've seen some of the breakdowns now a couple days later, so we're not going to sit here and harp on it. But what's maybe an overarching thought from this loss, and where do you see this team now at 1-3?
Well, the one thing that I can say that I found myself repeating was in this game, Washington they found a way to lose in
Mm-hmm.
three different ways throughout the season. So it's a couple times to get down too much and or turning the ball over, but this game it was penalties.
Yeah.
The penalties, because I turned on the game and I'm like, okay, 6-0. I'm like, all right, cool. Like this is a good game. Like this is a
Yeah.
slugfest. This is kind of what you expect. But then you had two turnovers that were negated by penalty, and then you just continually had more penalties, and that puts you in unfavorable situations, and then things just kind of compound. After a while, you have to get rolling. I mean, like once again, yes, the offense didn't get going, but I feel like those penalties really just set the team back so far that you weren't able to get any momentum. And then when you did have a momentum shifting play, it was negated by a penalty. And that just knocks the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, they were backbreakers, and you're absolutely right. To get a turnover and then to see that yellow flag come flying, it's got to be deflating, and it's probably part of the reason why, we didn't they weren't able to capitalize on it. It feels so deflating that you go and make a play like that, and then all of a sudden there's a hanky laying out there. But I think also along with the penalties, which was obvious, and I know it was a big number. I don't have the number in front of me, the number and yards for penalties. It was again the big play, and it was at the worst times. Like they played pretty solid. They would make a couple of plays. John Allen spent most of the afternoon in the Dallas backfield. That guy dominated the Dallas offensive line, but it was like the big play, the big run, the seam to CeeDee Lamb for the touchdown. But it just seemed like they still were giving up the big play at inopportune times, and it's becoming a little frustrating because you hear that the communications hopefully getting a little bit better. You thought it would be kind of solved with Cam Curl out there, but it's the same stuff over and over again. And this, we sound like a broken record now, but they got to get this right if they're gonna, do anything with this season. And I know we're only a quarter of the way into the season, but the season gets old pretty quick.
It really does, and really the way the rest of the division is performing and looking right now, it's like, man,
you're 2 games back from second place, not the leader, but you're 2 games back from second place now.
Didn't even have this in my scenario generator as to how the season would go down just as a division,
right?
To be honest, but man, yeah, the way the division is going, it's a clear separation that's happening right now. So you have to definitely get back on the right track. I mean, you're going against a Tennessee team that is, they've shown to be they've taken some losses this year, and so they are beatable. They are beatable, and I mean, we'll touch on this later on in the week. But I mean, this is if you're going to right the ship, you got to do it now. The first quarter of the season is done. You got plenty of tape. People have seen all what you're going to do. Make a decision. Look in the mirror and get it right. You got to get going. Got to go in the right direction and start Sunday.
And you faced some tough defenses. I'm not going to make excuses, but I think the Eagles are potentially one of the best teams you're going to face. The Jaguars shut out the Eagles and for a little bit there at the beginning of their game. You face that defense. I think the Cowboys are a talented defense, which we saw. So hopefully it eases up a little bit, but the offense has got to still get into a better rhythm too. They can't keep putting their defense in this many holes. They got to sustain some drives, and I think that's where Brian Robinson's going to help big time. I think the I think the running game was actually pretty effective early on for the Commanders. I thought Antonio Gibson got going, and then there was a couple of dumb penalties on the offensive side too that really backed you up and didn't allow you to continue that run game. So I think Brian Robinson will help, and like you said, you got a bruiser and Derrick Henry coming to town. It'd be nice to kind of punch them in the mouth as well with a Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson 1-2 punch. So we don't want to harp on it. We know what happened in Dallas. 1-3 is not very good a quarter of the way through the season, but you got a quick turnaround. You got 2 games in a week and a half. You got Tennessee this weekend, and then Chicago the following Thursday. So you got to get it together, or you're going to be staring at an even bigger hole. And you can't afford that. We talked about the NFC East being pretty solid and maybe kind of unexpectedly. So today, real quick, we mentioned this before the show. I was talking to AAA about this. John Allen made some quick comments. He said, he wants the fans' energy to be the same when they get it turned around. And I think people are frustrated because a lot of fans have been fans for longer than John Allen has been alive, so that they've been through the thick and the thin. And I think they're kind of sick of this poor play. I don't think you should be attacking players individually or calling them out or anything like that on the fan side, but also I don't know that calling out your own fans when you're 1-3 does you any good either. What are your thoughts as a former player and kind of now turned fan? What are your thoughts on that? It's kind of a loaded question. I know. I'm kind of throwing that out there.
It's all good. It's all good. I mean, I've been on both sides, and it's a loud space when you get on Twitter.
Sure.
Because it's everybody's voicing their concerns and their comments, and they get to do it from the safety of their own home and behind screens. And I understand the frustration. I get mad too. I'm right there with you. But I mean, for John, the big thing is just you got to focus on just getting back out there and getting to work. Mm-hmm. That's it. The only thing that the fans want are wins.
Yep.
At the end of the day, Washington wants to have more points on the board than the opponent, and to have that continue to happen week in and week out. That's what's going to make people happy. If you get in there on Twitter and you get to going back and forth, I mean, that's never gonna be helpful. You're worried about the
No.
wrong thing. So, I mean, I'm with you, John. I get it. I understand the frustration. I do, and I can tell you that whenever you get things turned around, which will start on Sunday, when things get turned around on Sunday, they'll be right there giving you same. They're gonna love you. They're gonna be right there supporting you, and you just got to make that thing continue on the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I think we all forget that fans is short for fanatics, and fanatics is not always a positive thing. So to kind of add fuel to that fire is never the way to go. But also for fans calling out the individual players and that kind of thing, that never does any good anyway. You're kind of yelling at yourself too. A lot of times they don't hear, they're not going to respond individually to you. So I think everybody needs to take a breather. We're only a quarter of the way through the season. There's still a lot of football left to be played. I think these guys have talent and have the work ethic to get it turned around. So I think everybody just needs to take a breather, say your piece, and let's move on. Let's worry about beating Tennessee on Sunday. Like you said, it starts this Sunday.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
so speaking of Tennessee, I think that they could potentially be a team that maybe you thought would be a little bit better this season. We've seen a couple of playoff teams from last year kind of struggle a little bit, but we wanted to talk maybe about some of our first quarter NFL grades. We are 4 games through the season with a 17-game schedule. Speaking of math earlier, I did this. So technically, the quarter mark of the season is a quarter into the 5th game, 4.25, but we're just going to call it a quarter of the season so far.
Yeah, well, see, that's because we can't hop on here precisely 15 minutes into the
Right.
first quarter of the
There,
of the fifth game. If y'all don't understand
yeah,
what's going on.
I watch Red Zone Channel. None of those games end, start, finish at the same time. So this is the best we can do quarter wise. But I think there's been some really fun football played across the NFL through 4 weeks in the season. So we thought maybe we'd tell you some of our overperformers, underperformers, way too early MVPs a quarter way through the season. What you got, Triple A? What are you thinking? Where do we start here?
Well, if we're gonna go with the team that has surprised me the most, and this can be up and down,
Okay, gotcha.
positive or negative. Team that has surprised me the most, and I picked the New England Patriots.
Okay.
Now, obviously, earlier in the year, my surprise team for the year was the Dolphins, and it would have been easy to pick those guys. But I'm sitting here looking at the division, and the Patriots are fourth in the
Mhm.
division. They're 1-3 in the AFC East. The Dolphins are sitting at the top. I have not done any of the research to figure out when was the last time that these guys have been sitting fourth, let alone 1-3 in the division.
Okay, so I saw a brief tweet. I want to say it was CBS Sports said the last time the Patriots were 1-3 was actually last year. Okay, so they went to the playoffs last year. The last time they were 1-3 before that was 2001, and that was the start of the Tom Brady Super Bowl era. So
Okay.
maybe Bill Belichick's playing an evil mind game here, and they're right where they want to be.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Maybe.
That just takes all the air out of my
Oh,
damn
I'm so
balloon.
sorry. I'm
No,
so
you're
sorry.
good, man. I mean, hey, that's the facts. But I mean, honestly, I would say with this combination, I don't know when I couldn't. I don't know. It's surprising to me. You
Yeah.
just always feel like a Belichick led team is going to be able to put a little bit more to it. But just to see them at the bottom with the Dolphins above the Bills and the Jets, and so all of that stuff, that's just surprising to me.
Yeah, and there's a chance that they're starting a rookie quarterback this week with Bailey Zappi. I think I saw that Hoyer's still in the concussion protocol. Mac Jones is still banged up. So I certainly don't think Tom Brady is walking back through that door, at least not 2001 Tom Brady. So yeah, that's crazy to see the Patriots, and they've it looked like they kind of got a little out coached in some key situations in that Packers game. Usually those close games go to the Patriots, but not this past week. They got it taken to them by the Packers in overtime. Overperformer for me, or surprising, is the way I looked at it, was overperformer. I've been really impressed with what the Jacksonville Jaguars have done. They're sitting at 2-2. It looked like we're about to pull off one of the biggest upsets in a long time over the Eagles. Started off 14-0. Sloppy game. Trevor Lawrence couldn't hold on to the ball, but I think the Eagles are one of the best teams in the league. I hate to say it as a hated division foe of the Commanders, but I really like what the Jaguars have done. Seems like their young pieces on the defensive side of the ball are making plays. They had a pick six. James Robinson, it continues to be solid. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to continue to get better. And Christian Kirk, that doesn't look as awful as a deal as we were all making fun of in the offseason. I think he's top 10. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, my bad. My
Same
bad.
for me.
Damn.
I feel so bad. I need to go back and clip something and be like, I am sorry for saying this, but I think he's top 10 in receiving yards, and it looks like that they've got a fun offense going. So I've been impressed with what they're doing down in Duval, and I think the Jaguars could potentially they're in the lead right now, or tied for the lead in that AFC South, and could be a noisemaker in that division all season long.
Yes, indeed. The Jacksonville This is the year, and I saw that Clay Harbor, he was on the Believe in Jaguars show. He had said that he's like, this could be the year that the Jaguars could win the division. And I mean, looking at it, they lead at 2-2.
Yeah,
but they're the only team in the division that is in the positive on net points.
wow.
They've scored 105 and they've only allowed 67. Tennessee has allowed 101 and they've only scored 75. So Commanders fans, hey, you got a team that's not scoring a lot of points that you're about to face. Indy's only scored 57. I mean, hell, Houston scored 73.
I was gonna say something. Another stat I saw on Twitter. Of course, I can't find it when I'm looking for it, but the Colts are 1-2-1, I believe.
Correct.
And they have not allowed a fourth quarter point, yet they have a losing record.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's another one of those teams. I was gonna say, like, a couple of my honorable mentions of teams that are surprising. The Colts surprised me because they haven't been winning like people were really expecting.
Yeah.
And I think it starts to mess with a whole other show of Ursa. I mean, all I think about is you threw all that shade on Carson Wentz, and then you come out and you 1-2-1.
Mm-hmm. And of course you can say, well, the Commanders are 1-3. Carson Wentz has started to turn the ball over, but man, Matt Ryan he's struggled.
Yeah, it hasn't been. Whenever you pile on a guy as he leaves and you make it seem it's his fault and you point at it, and then your team shows up and they're not really performing that well. Yeah, that's something that you kind of gotta swallow your medicine there. Houston's been playing some hellified football.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been playing tough football.
Like that running back too, Damian Pierce, the rookie.
Yeah. Things just haven't been going. They just the scores haven't been going their way, but they've been playing some good football.
A team that has underperformed for me and kind of along those lines that I thought was going to be way better and was getting ready to take the next step after last year, going to the playoffs, thought that, they got a new coach. I'm giving little clues before I get there. And then they add a huge weapon, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Las Vegas. Yes, indeed. Yeah. That was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, they got the win against the Broncos, which I'm not sure how good the Broncos are. It seems like Russ is kind of all over the place right now, but I thought the Raiders were getting ready to take a step. I thought they were going to be competing with the Chiefs, and right now they're at the bottom of that division at 1-3. It does not look pretty in Vegas.
Yeah, there was some tweets and videos going around of I can't think of the guy. The guy played O-line. He played for McDaniels, and I think he said that he's like, I don't think he's going to do very well. I think it was McGlinchey or something. I may be wrong, but either way, he was saying McDaniels comes in there and he just starts letting people go. This is from when he went to Denver and how it rubbed people the wrong way, and he didn't expect them to do too well in Vegas, and it's looking like that. Now, I mean, my question is this, though. I don't know Josh McDaniels. But this dude is a 2-time head coach.
Right.
been given opportunities 2 times to be a head coach. Matter of fact, 3 times.
Yeah, don't forget the Colts.
He got the job and then backed out at the last second.
Right.
So just taking the temperature around the room of the 32 billionaires, 29, y'all have decided to hire this dude multiple times. There are a lot of people out there that should probably be getting opportunities. Yet you keep going on with these retread tires, and obviously the production is not there. So.
No. And I saw, sometimes a player is to be criticized. Sometimes they can't pick up an offense, yada, yada, yada. I thought Derek Carr has been a pretty solid quarterback. I think he has dragged that team to some wins over the years when they probably shouldn't have. And I've seen him get a lot of flack, like he can't figure out the Josh McDaniels offense. There's something going on there. Maybe Josh Daniels was sold a false bill of goods with Derek Carr. Are we sure it's not the other way around? Are we sure that the Raiders didn't get fooled into hiring a guy that just looked real pretty being underneath Bill Belichick? I mean,
hey, look, sometimes it's great when people know where you best fit, in the league. Like, come in, yeah, you want to be a starter. But I think about Charlie Batch, and I love Charlie Batch, but he spent the majority of his career as backup quarterback. And when he got his spot chance, like to play, he performed well. And when the starter came back, he did his job. If you're best at being the offensive coordinator in Foxborough, then maybe y'all should just let him continue to be the offensive coordinator in Foxborough, unless it was a plan to get him out of the AFC East.
Right.
And then now you can let the other teams raise up to the top. Maybe so, because I don't know, man.
Yeah,
at this point, it's Josh McDaniels.
Yeah. Well, and just look back and not to dog on people, but when your first move as a head coach is to draft Tim Tebow in the first round, like we got to start looking at some of your decisions before we start questioning whether you have the right players. I mean, come on now, let's take some accountability. And maybe they're turning it around. Maybe that's what they needed was to get a win under their belts. But I'm not seeing it, and it's kind of disappointing for a team that went to the playoffs at least last year, maybe the year before too. So they're taking a couple steps in the wrong direction there.
Yeah, sometimes I think I feel like teams get to chasing like headlines and obviously dollars, but sometimes when you have a good team, you have a good thing going.
Yeah,
just let it ride. I mean, you're in Vegas, let it ride. Damn.
Yeah. Well, and Rich Bisaccio, he kind of won over that organization.
Yes,
and
I
it's
love
like
Rich.
It's kind of like the grass is not always greener. Just because you have this shiny thing over there, you don't know how that thing runs. You never know what's going on under the hood there. And so the Raiders could be paying the price there. So we talked quarter of the way through the season. If the season ended right now, which would be really silly 4 games in, but if it ended right now, who would be your MVP, or at least maybe some of your MVP front runners?
Oh man, a couple of them. I mean, one obviously, division opponent, Jalen Hurts. I mean, I went on and on about him, just about what he's been able to do and just how he's been able to carry that team and navigate the offense. So he's a guy that's on the top. And if I stay in the division, hell, you could say Cooper Rush is an MVP candidate. He's a guy that
steady.
I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought you lose your starting quarterback and tackle, and then here comes, a guy that y'all let go, that you released well before, you had to, and he leads you to 3 wins. Man, that's something. I mean, that's a great story for him. I mean, he's in the mix. Saquon Barkley, the way that he just
if we're going to stay even more in the division,
stay in even more in the division. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due, and those 3 gentlemen have been playing some good football. So yeah, those are a couple. What about you? What do you got?
Enough of the love for the in division. I'm going to go on the other side, on the AFC, as far away from DC as I possibly can go right now. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. I know that sounds like a boring pick, but he, there were some question marks how he was going to do without Tyreek Hill, and all he's done is just made plays. I know he had a disappointing loss to the Colts, but other than that, he has been just putting together some magnificent football. We saw the footwork on along the goal line to throw a touchdown.
That was
pass.
ridiculous.
That was unreal.
That was
ridiculous. I just it sounds boring, but it sounds like a chalk pick. But I like what Mahomes is doing, and I think it was huge for him to go into Tampa Bay and get the win as well. Where some of his few his few bad performances were against the Bucks, and in the Super Bowl. So I think Mahomes is right up there. I'm trying to think of some guys that aren't quarterbacks. I feel like quarterbacks always get the MVP awards. So I'm going to throw out another guy in Deebo Samuel. Just watching him last night, maybe it's kind of some recency. He still just is a playmaker all over the field. They've had some quarterback issues, and it hasn't really mattered because that guy just takes it to the house. Big win against the Rams. And I think Deebo is going to keep the 49ers in it, and they look like a really tough team. So a couple of easy picks there for me, but I think that the MVP is who's most valuable, and those two guys certainly are.
They definitely are. I mean, really, I just keep scrolling up and down the standings, and it seems like the teams that at one, I feel like you can feel there's a shift. There's a shift happening. Like there's a transition of the old dogs are kind of getting phased out and they're on their way out. And then these new young dogs are coming in, Lamar Jacksons and Justin Herberts and Jalen Hurts. Those guys it's their time. It's their time to take over the league. And I mean, Tom Brady hasn't been looking much like Tom Brady. Hell, the Jaguars are at the top of the division. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's changing. And I mean, football, this is going to be a good season. There's a lot of 2-2 teams. I mean, there's, 1-4-0 team right now. Like I feel like that's quick. Where, we only have 1-4-0 team right now, one undefeated team. So overall, great start to the season.
I was at the bagel shop this morning. They had Sports Center on. I think they said this is the most 2-2 teams we've had this 4 weeks into the season, obviously 2-2 since 2017. So it's been a few years since we've seen this kind of parity, and I think it's really fun because I know the Eagles are 4-0. We've talked a little bit about the Chiefs. We see some of these good teams, but I think you can make a case for a bunch of teams potentially getting hot and making a name for themselves and going on a deep run here. And I think that's really fun and really good for the NFL.
Yeah, it really is. There's definitely a lot out there to be excited for. Whatever team you're cheering for, there's a lot to be excited about. I mean, these numbers can change. I mean, you can take a screenshot of where these teams are right now, and the team at the bottom could easily be at the top. I mean, shoot, the NFC West, that division that is just expected to be fireworks, is 2-2 across the board.
Yep. And Geno Smith might be the most impressive quarterback in that
comeback
division.
Player of the year.
Yeah.
Comeback player of the year. He didn't write back. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Don't write back. That's the key. Leave him on red there. So you can bet on all these guys on Bet Online. We appreciate them bringing you the show, so you can make some bets there on the NFL. There's no telling how it's going to go each week, as our picks have shown, and we'll get into that later on this week and kind of break down the Titans going into DC. But so that's where we are, a quarter of the way through the season. The Commanders are 1-3. It's kind of disappointing, but they have the whole season ahead of them. Team Commanders, our fantasy team, 3-1, tops in the Believe League. Look at that right there. So some Commanders are doing pretty well. So it's not doom and gloom everywhere. There's a lot of fun stuff to watch in the NFL and to talk about.
Yes, indeed, folks. It's gonna be a good finish to the season. It's gonna be all good. So we're gonna get this thing going. We're gonna wrap this one up. We will catch y'all later on in the week. Please go check out betonline.ag. Use our code BELIEVE, BLEAV, and we will catch you guys in the next one.
Be good.